Number 10. Moreland. Okay, so really this isn't Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman specifically, but it definitely looked like her. On Loom World, Jessica Drew's doppelganger was actually a lover of the inheritor and villain Moreland. As such, this odd coincidence actually allowed Jessica Drew to infiltrate Loom World to get valuable intel on the inheritors and the Master Weaver. This intel would help the Spider Army to defeat the inheritors and save the day, making the fact that she was forced to kiss Moreland worth it, I'm sure. I mean, at least I hope it was worth it. Oddly enough, although Jessica was not great at going undercover as her doppelganger, who by all regards was pretty much a big jerky jerk on this world, she still managed to get what she needed, utilizing her pheromones to distract from inconsistencies and prove that all in all, Spider-Woman is actually a really great spy, even when she has no plan and is kind of flying by the seat of her pants. Improvisational spy times. Number 9. Spider-Man. While Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman and Peter Parker's Spider-Man aren't really a match made in heaven in any regards. In fact, at times Jessica finds Peter kinda grating and Peter finds Jessica a bit too intense. Jessica Drew hasn't been the only one to take up the Spider-Woman mantle. For a time, while her powers were inconsistent, after having been lost, returned, and then stolen and slowly recovering them over time, she actually bequeathed the name to another superpowered young woman, Maddie Franklin. Maddie became known for a time as Spider-Woman in Jessica's stead after being granted superpowers of her own. She also ended up becoming enamored with one Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. At one point, Spider-Man gives Maddie his Spider-Woman CPR, and she uses the opportunity to kiss him. This was during a time when Mary Jane was MIA and believed dead. In fact, that's like the previous issue to this kiss. However, despite MJ possibly being dead, Peter felt super uncomfortable with the romance and ultimately rejected Spider-Woman, even going so far as to have her memory wiped when it came to the truth of his secret identity. He felt that the age difference between them was too great, and also that his secret was too big a burden for someone so young to carry. Plus, he wasn't convinced that Mary Jane was truly dead, holding out hope that she was alive and would somehow be saved in return. Turned out he was right, by the way, that did end up happening. Still, that rejection of young Maddie was pretty harsh. Memory wiped? Woo, ouch. I know she's young, but geez, that would mess me up. I mean, I guess you won't remember it because your mind was wiped, so there's that. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn about more Spider-Woman love interests or just Spidey love interests in general, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. David Ashima. David was Jessica Drew aka Spider-Woman's landlord when she was living in San Francisco with her good friend Lindsay McCabe. I love Lindsay. I'm so glad that she's returned in the comics. David and Jessica hit it off and began dating. However, the relationship didn't last as eventually David Ashima discovered that Jessica Drew was secretly Spider-Woman, also known in San Fran as the Dark Angel of San Francisco. This was all too much for David, and the two ended up calling it quits on their relationship. However, it should be noted that this whole ordeal would not stop David from later asking out Kitty Pryde when some of the X-Men came to visit Jessica. Number 7. Shroud. Shroud was the love interest of Julia Carpenter's Spider-Woman. While this Spider-Woman was also married at one point, her husband and her ended up getting divorced, with him getting custody of their daughter, Rachel, due to Julia's unexplained absences as a result of her secret life as the hero, Spider-Woman. The Shroud and Spider-Woman would fall in love when he helped her after she had lost her powers. It was Shroud who helped restore them and also helped Julia to recover from being paralyzed with physical therapy. Unfortunately, the romance wouldn't last, but even after they broke up, the Shroud refused to let Julia go and began stalking her in an attempt to get back together with her because he believed it would help him, fix his life. Yeah, that didn't end well. Julia was like, don't stalk me. Stop that. I'm gonna lay a trap for you. Number 6. Captain Marvel. Carol is really just Jessica Drew's best friend forever, but despite them's being the facts, there are still a ton of people who ship these two together as, well, as more than friends. The chemistry between Jessica Drew and Carol Danvers is really great, which is what makes it easy to accept that they are the best of friends, but some see that there could be more to these two than just a very close friendship. And I cannot deny myself, if either of these women decided that they wanted to date women, you know, they would actually be seemingly pretty perfectly matched for each other. There are times when Carol and Jessica in the comics even sound like an old bickering married couple, and then there are other times where they are so kind, considerate, loving, and loyal to each other that you could believe that they were like divine soulmates. So although this is a ship that isn't completely real or anything, I gotta say, I kinda like it. I kinda like it as a ship, which is why I included it. So if you ship those two as more than friends, that's alright. I stand by it. Put it in your fanfics. Number 5. Lady Death. That's right, at one point Deadpool ends up falling in love with Lady Death, probably one of the women who would really be the hardest for him to end up with, considering his powerful healing factor. But also, as someone who can't die, it would make sense that the allure of Lady Death would sufficiently seduce him. The really wild thing is that Lady Death was also like super into Deadpool and wanted to be with him romantically. Unfortunately, Thanos became quite jealous of Deadpool's relationship with his ultimate crush. In order to keep the two apart, Thanos cursed Deadpool with immortality. So now not only did Deadpool have an impossibly high healing factor, which generally made him dying highly improbable, but now, with immortality, it was virtually impossible for Deadpool to perish. Eventually, Deadpool would regain his mortality and would also at one point use his connection to Death to convince her to restore the concept of mortality to the world after it had been taken away. Number 4. Copycat. Well, you might think you know Vanessa from the Deadpool movies. In the comics, Vanessa Carlyle is quite a bit different than her cinematic counterpart. She is the mutant mercenary known as Copycat. In the comics, her mutant power allows her to perfectly replicate the appearance, personality, and even DNA of any other humanoid being. Like in the movies, for a brief time she and Wade were in love and happy together. And like in the movies, Wade left Vanessa when he learned he had cancer. The two, however, would tragically be reunited while on opposite sides of a conflict. Vanessa would become a mercenary and was tasked with infiltrating and killing the X-Force while impersonating Domino. When she couldn't bring herself to follow through with the hit though, Deadpool was sent to make sure that she did. She decided to side with the X-Force and fought against Deadpool. In the end, the two would end up back together, but ultimately Deadpool would be hired to kill Copycat later on. When he couldn't bring himself to follow through with that, other agents were sent in to make sure Copycat died. Sabretooth delivered the killing blow, and she died, tragically, in Deadpool's arms. Or so it would seem. She'd later show up alive and well without explanation in the comics, still seemingly possessing her mutant powers somehow. Who knows what happened? I don't know if we know that yet, but she's alive again, and I'm sure one day we'll find out what happened. Number 3. Shiklah. Shiklah was actually the wife of Deadpool for a time. He was hired to bring her to Dracula, who she was actually supposed to marry, but along the way, she fell in love with Deadpool. Sort of like a weird and maybe grosser version of Shrek, perhaps? Not like Deadpool's a grosser version of Shrek? Like that whole narrative sounds like a maybe grosser version of Shrek. The two would end up deciding to stay together and get married. It was fun for a while, but eventually Shiklah became resentful of the world above. She was the ruler of the monsters, and as such lived in the underworld. Deadpool's long absences from her only intensified her feelings of resentment, and eventually she launched an attack on the surface world. Deadpool ended up joining up with Dracula to stop her, and after she was defeated, Dracula proposed marriage to Shiklah, who agreed, thereby stealing her right back from Deadpool and nullifying Wade and Shiklah's marriage. Number 2. Vanessa Carlyle. Vanessa is the partner of Deadpool in the cinematic Deadpool universe, which might also end up being the MCU eventually. Or it might be the MCU now, I'm not sure. After all, we did see Deadpool and Korg do a reaction video together for free, guys, so Deadpool is at least part of the MC YouTube verse now. Vanessa Carlyle, like Wade, also seemed to grow up having a hard life. The two actually bond over their tragic childhoods and traumatic life experiences, often trying to one-up each other in regards to who had it worse growing up. A competition really no one wins in the end. Wade at first paid Vanessa for her time, but instead of paying to sleep with her, the service she typically charged for, he used the time he'd bought to take her out on a date instead. The two ended up falling in love and eventually would become engaged as their relationship continued to blossom. Even after Wade was diagnosed with cancer and left her to try and heal in secret, but ended up instead being experimented on and ultimately becoming the anti-hero Deadpool, Vanessa still wanted to be with him, which is pretty understanding. Though of course she was mad that he had left her. In Deadpool 2, Vanessa is killed at the beginning of the movie, but ends up being saved at the end by Deadpool, who fixes and uses Cable's time travel device so that he can go back and save her. Yay! So she only kind of got fridged, but not full fridged, so Yay! Number 1. Elsa Bloodstone. Probably one of his more recent romantic interests has been Elsa Bloodstone in the comics. She teamed up with him in a recent series where he became the King of Staten Island and the King of Monsters. Despite Wade doubting his own capability to be a good king, Elsa believes in him. This probably is a big reason why Deadpool found himself developing feelings for Elsa Bloodstone. He sacrificed himself to save her when it was revealed that her Bloodstone had become corrupted and was basically killing her. Deadpool took her Bloodstone in order to free Elsa and save her life. Through taking it, Wade also helped to reverse the corruption so that when Elsa came back to look for him following a battle with the Bone Beast Queen, she was able to take back the Bloodstone once more without having to fear for her own life. As such, Elsa finished off the Queen, retrieving Deadpool and confessing her own feelings for him, giving him a big kiss. When he seemingly awoke, revealing that he wasn't dead yet, she then decided to stay with Deadpool while he regenerated the rest of his body, as at that time all that was left of him was a disembodied head. A very gross disembodied head. And I love that Elsa was like, I don't care. You're gross, but it's fine. I know monsters. I'm cool.
In at 10, Mary Jane Watson. After several attempts by Aunt May to bring Peter and MJ together, Mary Jane finally visited Peter's home. However, Spider-Man was away fighting the Spider Slayer robots at the moment. In her visit, she encountered both Betty Brant and Liz Allen, both also competing for Peter's affections. They were captivated by Mary Jane's beauty. Like her mother and sister, Mary Jane had a passion for the performing arts as well. She aspired for a career on Broadway or in film, and she excelled in high school productions. Eventually, Peter and Mary Jane got married on the front steps of New York City Hall, with her uncle, not his because his is dead, Judge Spencer Watson residing over the ceremony. Later, Peter faced a challenging quest to save Aunt May's life after she was shot, which was a shot that was intended for him, but seeking the help of Doctor Strange, they realized that not even magic could cure her, because, you know, she was basically already in the grave. Peter appealed to Tony Stark for help, and he was sent to like $2 million to cover hospital fees, but that wasn't gonna be enough. So Peter sold his marriage to MJ to Mephisto to save his aunt, who has been elderly since the 60s and beyond even the point of magic saving her. Dude, let it go. In at 9, Gwen Stacy. Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker were classmates at Empire State University. Initially distant due to Peter's preoccupation, with being Spider-Man, as time passed, they developed a romantic connection. Gwen was a science major who admired Peter's intellect and unique personality, unique air quotes, but she became Peter's first true love. Tragically though, Gwen was ambushed by the Green Goblin, who sought to lure Spider-Man into a trap. He kidnapped her and took her to the Brooklyn Bridge. In a fierce battle, Spider-Man tried to save her, but he was weakened due to an illness. He was sick at the time because, Green Goblin has the perfect timing. And then when Green Goblin pushed Gwen off the bridge, Spider-Man managed to catch her with a web, but the sudden stop broke her neck. Probably the most realistic moment in Spider-Man comic books of being caught by a web. Despite being alive during the battle, she was hanging there, her neck was broken, she ended up passing away due to suffocation, leading her to feel betrayed because, she had only now found out Spider-Man's identity, even though she had been dating Peter. So that's kind of messed up. Gwen Stacy's death became one of the most heart-wrenching and pivotal moments in Spider-Man's life though, leaving a lasting impact on both the hero and the readers and just, every other Spider-Man media ever. Sorry Andrew, I guess you literally couldn't save her. It was written in the stars. It was a canon event. In at 8, Anna Marconi. Speaking of a version of Spider-Man that's not the mainstream one, Andrew Garfield, let's discuss the Superior Spider-Man and his fascination with Anna Marconi. Superior Spider-Man is actually Otto Octavius, who prior to the Superior Spider-Man storyline had brain swapped with Peter. Yet a piece of Peter was still there in his own body. I mean, I'd hope so because, it's a freaking brain swap. That's kind of weird to begin with. Who eventually ended up convincing Otto to be a hero, although he was a darker one. Doc Ock was up to some really shady stuff while pretending to be Peter as well. Since Peter was young, handsome, and in shape, he had actual women in his life. So Otto tried his luck at getting Mary Jane to sleep with him, but failed miserably, thank the Lord. So when things weren't going well, he went to Anna Marconi, whom Otto Peter started dating. She had no idea what the real situation was, because if he had said anything, she probably would have had him committed. And while it's unclear if they ever hopped on the good foot and did the bad thing, to quote Austin Powers, it's obvious that things were at least going in that direction, okay? Otto was in love with her, which was a surprise since he decided to give Peter back his body to save her. But still, it's still a horrific story and like immoral in the highest order. But hey, it's a Spider-Man love interest, so there you go. It belongs on this list. Jesus Christ. And at 7, Carly Cooper. Man, Peter Parker, Carly Cooper, what is with the alliteration in Marvel Comics? Carly and Peter dated for a brief time, with Carly breaking up with him after finding out that he was Spider-Man. In spite of their past relationship though, Carly helped Peter track down the Vultures, and their leader, the original Vulture, well, the new Vultures. It was like a gang of them, and their leader who was Adrian Toomes. Afterwards, Carly dated Detective Walker Bolt up until his death, and when Dr. Octopus switched minds with Spider-Man, Carly was the only person to be told by Doc Ock that he was actually Peter Parker moments before his death. So like the Doc Ock body was actually Peter, right? So Carly was the only one who knew that. Or maybe it was that Doc Ock told her that he was in Peter's body before Doc Ock died. I'm not exactly sure, I'm a bit hazy on the details. Anyways, Carly began to investigate if what she was told was true, and it was. With assistance from Yuri Watanabe, she was able to confirm that Otto was in possession of Peter's body and that Peter had died. She visited his grave, but was surprised when it caved in, revealing that the body had been secretly exhumed. Carly was then ambushed and taken to the Goblin Underground, where she was interrogated about Spider-Man's true identity, but hey, they still dated, it still counts, it's going on the list. Alright, I'm going weird with this. I'm not gonna go everyone that everyone already knows. I'm gonna make you think. And at 6, Silver Sable. After her mother was killed in a bombing, Silver implored her father to teach her how to avenge her mother's death. Despite his initial reluctance, Silver's father eventually saw her potential and started training her. When he passed away, Silver took over the Wild Pack and founded Silver Sable International. She first met Spider-Man while pursuing the Black Fox, and although she nearly caught him with the help of the New York City police, Spider-Man's actions inadvertently interfered. Silver Sable possesses an indomitable will and is able to resist a worldwide psychic manipulation from the goddess. She is also very skilled in hand-to-hand combat, martial arts, marksmanship, sword fighting, and gymnastics. Attaboy Peter. And she's also an expert strategist and leader, capable of quickly assessing the strengths and weaknesses of opponents. Silver Sable has even managed to hold her own against the Punisher, but yeah, her and Spider-Man dated.
Number 5, Executioner. Not the Executioner that you know from Thor, Scourge, to be clear, but rather Daniel Dubois. Daniel is the son of the villain Princess Python. Kate attempted to mentor Daniel, and the two, who go to school together, attended a charity event as one another's date. However, when the Young Avengers seemingly show up on the scene with a supposed Hawkeye complimenting Kate's dress, Daniel began to wonder if Kate Bishop really was Hawkeye as he suspected. In truth, this other version of Hawkeye was not who they appeared to be, and Kate was the real Kate Bishop Hawkeye, obviously. Executioner is a member of the Young Masters of Evil and is later seen among the ranks of the Masters of Evil, just like Kate growing up, just like the Young Avengers, and they all got Avengers membership as well. I'm assuming they all have little Avengers membership cards. Think if you're on the Avengers, you get a membership card. Number 4, Fuse. Fuse is Johnny Watts, who ended up becoming one of Kate's partners and friends when she started Hawk Investigations. As they worked together and spent more time together, he began to develop feelings for Kate. Things got kinda weird when Madame Mask and a clone body of Kate ended up taking things to a more physical and intimate level with Johnny. However, later on, Kate did admit that she had feelings for Johnny, and likewise, he for her. Eventually, Johnny also revealed that he had superpowers when he was forced to use them to save Kate's life. He would take up the name of Fuse and end up joining Kate when she decided to go help out the West Coast Avengers. However, in her latest series, Hawkeye Kate Bishop, it was revealed that the two decided to break off their romance when Kate decided to head back to New York. Number 3, Speed. Tommy Shepard might currently be with Prodigy in the comics, but he is one of my sweet bye babes, and he's also had a thing with Kate in the past as well. In fact, during their time together on the Young Avengers, the attraction between the two even created some tension, as Kate found herself stuck between Speed and Patriot in a sort of love triangle. Who's she gonna be with? At one point, Speed ended up being her kiss on New Year's Eve when the team celebrated the new year together. There are also alternate realities where these two have even ended up married, although it seems more than likely currently that Prodigy she could end up being Speed's endgame, at least in my opinion. Regardless, Kate and Tommy definitely have a strong connection to one another and still remain friends to this day, who care about one another a lot and share a strong bond due to their time together on the Young Avengers team. Number 2. Patriot. Patriot has been an on and off romantic interest of Kate's. He is Elijah Bradley, or Eli Bradley, grandson of Isaiah Bradley, who, yes, we met in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Disney Plus series in the MCU. Eli initially had super soldier-like powers, which he got through using the mutant hormone growth drug, much to the disappointment of his teammates on the Young Avengers. When they found out about this, they were all pretty worried about him, Kate included. In the end, however, Eli would gain permanent super soldier-like powers after receiving a blood transfusion from his grandfather, who himself was one of the first super soldiers to have been created when the US government and military attempted to recreate Dr. Erskine's formula. Patriot and Hawkeye went on a few awkward dates and shared a kiss when they both found themselves trapped under rubble during Siege. Number 1. Novar. Honestly, this was a hard one to pick a number 1 for. I feel like it's a toss-up between the top few spots here, but I went with Novar, so take it or leave it. You let me know what you think about that ranking. Novar, or Marvel Boy, is probably one of the greatest, or at least most prominent loves of Kate's life. The two hooked up and then decided to begin dating, but it didn't end up lasting, as Novar revealed that although he really liked Kate, he would leave her for his ex if he was given a chance to be with her again. Not a great look. He even tried to do so, but then it turned out that that version of his ex, Oubliette, was merely an illusion and not the real one. Kate, of course, did not like learning this and decided to permanently break things off, even when Novar tried to get back together with her. She needed someone who was serious about her and their relationship, someone who would be committed to her and for whom she wouldn't just be a placeholder. I get it, girl. Still, this hasn't stopped the two from ending up together in alternate realities, and despite how their relationship ended, Kate and Novar have still managed to stay friends. Who do you ship Kate Bishop with? Do you love when heroes fall in love, or do you prefer when they are more aloof and focused on heroics? No attachments.
Coming in at number 10, we have a bit of an honorable mention with Maya Hansen from the MCU film Iron Man 3. A genetic scientist who helped create the Extremis virus, Maya doesn't really get a lot to do in the actual movie we got to see, mainly being a former fling of Tony's who is helping the main villain, tries to have a change of heart, but then gets awkwardly killed for her efforts by Aldrich Killian. In the original script of the movie, however, Maya was initially intended to be the main villain and the mastermind behind Extremis, a former flame of Tony Stark's that had developed the technology specifically to destroy him. And while the actual movie cut down her role considerably and changed her character's fate, she still gets an honorable mention for the villainous love interest she almost was. Coming in at number 9, we have Joanna Nevena, the very first fiancée of Tony Stark. Revealed in a flashback storyline during the 1980s, Joanna was a young woman engaged to Tony Stark when he first began to act as the superhero Iron Man. Unaware of his secret double life, Joanna at first was pushed away by Tony's odd behavior and assumed him to be cheating until he finally told her the truth about his identity as Iron Man. And while for a time Joanna would encourage Tony to keep being a hero, she would eventually come to realize that he couldn't be both a superhero and a good husband to her, and so eventually broke off their engagement and hasn't been mentioned in the Marvel Universe ever since. Coming in at number 8, we have Kathy Dare. Tony's had his fair share of bad relationships over the years, but few have ended as poorly as his romance with Kathleen Dare, a woman who took Tony's playboy ways incredibly personally and would eventually get back at Tony by shooting him in the chest. Paralyzed from this attack and suffering from severe nerve damage, Tony decided to stop his own heart so that he'd be placed into cryostasis until a solution could be found to his nerve damage. Unfortunately, Tony didn't tell many people what his plan was, causing many of his friends to believe he had died for good, and with Kathy becoming extremely grief-stricken after thinking she had killed her ex-boyfriend in a pretty dark ending to a pretty dark storyline. Coming in at number 7, we have the villainous Madame Mask. Daughter of another Iron Man villain known as Count Nefaria, Mask first met Tony Stark while undercover at Stark Industries under the name of Chrissy Longfellow. Becoming so romantically involved that they purchased a penthouse apartment together, things seemed great for Tony and Chrissy until her true identity was finally revealed and Iron Man accidentally destroyed the machine that was keeping her father alive, even if he would later reappear down the road. episode. Furious at this turn of events, Madame Mask embraced her true scarred visage and left Tony for good, committing herself to becoming a criminal mastermind and becoming yet another member of Iron Man's Rogues Gallery. Coming in at number 6, we have Indris Mumji. Before he was one of the most beloved superheroes on the planet due to the popularity of the Iron Man movies, one of the most well-known traits of Tony Stark that has since been dropped is the character's struggles with being an alcoholic, and Indris is a character directly connected to that major storyline. Hired by the villainous Obadiah Stane, Indris posed as a bystander rescued by Iron Man and seduced Tony using pheromone chemicals along with her natural charms. Indris was ruthless and continually pushed Tony to relying on alcohol, and then eventually broke his heart at Stane's command, leaving Tony Stark at rock bottom and his drinking problems worse than ever, making this romance one of pure tragedy.
Number 5, Alexei Shostakov, also known formally as the Red Garden, or Ronin more recently. Alexei was actually Black Widow's husband before she was Black Widow, back when we knew her by the name Natalia Romanova. Before Nat was a Russian spy and assassin, she was a famous ballerina and was married to Alexei, one of the Soviet Union military's top pilots. Without Alexei, Nat would never have even become Black Widow. He was moved to special ops, but as such was told that he would no longer be able to contact his friends or family. The Soviet Union told Natalia that Alexei had died during the testing of a rocket, which prompted her to ask what it was that she could do for her country in Alexei's memory. The KGB happily took her under their wing and began training her as a spy and assassin at the Red Room. This story would of course later be retconned, of course. Instead, we are offered in the 2005 Black Widow series an origin story where Natalia is trained from a very young age in the Black Widow Ops program, but has artificial memories of training as a ballerina implanted into her mind. And so, if we're going with that version of a story, Alexei wasn't really the man who prompted her to become a spy, as she would have sort of already been trained as one without really knowing it. Still, I kind of like the original story better. Is that weird? Number 4, Hulk. This one surprised many. This relationship comes to us from the MCU, and while it seems to have fizzled out, Bruce Banner's reaction to Black Widow's death in Endgame revealed that he still likely had strong romantic feelings for her. These two apparently were drawn to one another because of their pasts. They both considered themselves monstrous, and it was this connection that brought them closer together. Bruce dealing with his anger issues and Hulk, and Black Widow dealing with her past as a trained Russian spy and assassin, all the red in her ledger that we've heard so much about. Hulk spent time off-world in Sakaar, and when he returned to Earth, it seemed like Bruce and Natasha were happy to see one another, but there weren't that many passionate sparks between them. A lot had changed, and it seemed that the time they had spent apart caused their relationship to fade, though I think they both still cared about each other very much, but just neither one really knew how to bring it up again. Also, Bruce kind of became like a Hulk-Bruce hybrid when he became the MCU version of Professor Hulk. Number 3, Daredevil. While fans of the MCU and Marvel Netflix series may be surprised to hear this one, comic book fans will likely consider Matt Murdock one of Natasha's ultimate love interests. The bottom line is these two just felt really right together, despite being from kind of two different hero worlds. Black Widow is a former assassin turned good guy who fights on a usually very global scale, whereas Daredevil is a lawyer by day who takes his fight for justice to the streets at night, and pretty much sticks to being the hero of one borough of New York, Hell's Kitchen. Natasha and Matt even both lived in San Francisco for a while together. Yeah, Natasha got Matt to move to San Francisco. Pretty crazy. Number 2, Hawkeye. In the comics, these two have had a very passionate romance together and were even almost married. Both were still criminals when they met and fell in love. When Hawkeye defected and became a hero, Black Widow defected to stay with him. So, what happened between them? Why didn't they get married? Well, Black Widow had a mission to complete, unsurprisingly. In many ways, missions are kind of Black Widow's #1 love interest. Natasha is often depicted as being married to her work. She's very involved in making sure she completes missions. Now, the mission she was on this time caused her to have to break Hawkeye's heart, and after that mission was complete, the two never really reconciled and got back together. However, this didn't completely ruin their relationship. They're still very good friends. Number 1, Winter Soldier. I mean, who else could possibly be Natasha's #1 other than her work? These two have known each other since Red Room days and are really great for one another just because they have so much in common. Bucky also seems to respect and trust Natasha like no one else. While Daredevil was often worried for her safety in their relationship and struggled with accepting that Black Widow could, take care of herself, Bucky has confidence in her. He trusts that she'll ask for help when she needs it. They feel comfortable relying on one another, but also trust one another enough to give each other space and independence, which I think makes for the best kind of relationship in any circumstance that anyone could ask for. Trust and respect is pretty much the winning combo. Number 10, Mystique. Wolverine has been around for a long time, so it's no surprise that this is a love interest I constantly forget about, but that exists. Mystique has of course also been around for a long time, and is possibly even older than Wolverine. So of course at some point in these characters' history, they had to have worked together and of course slept together. When it comes to Wolverine and Mystique, these two actually go way back, all the way back to the Wild Wild West. It was then that Logan and Raven seemingly first met, and even teamed up together. It could have been them against the world, but of course, what usually happens with Raven when it comes to romance also happened during her time with Wolverine. Ultimately, Raven betrayed Logan, putting herself first, and it was because of this that the two ended things, and on a pretty sour note. She also ended things by kicking him out of a moving train car, so yeah. Logan's memory isn't always the greatest, but something that he wouldn't soon forget was how untrustworthy Mystique was. Even to this day, he's like, "You suck, Mystique. Also, you're gonna be lonely because you're always betraying everyone." Number 9, Maureen. She might not be from the main continuity, but Maureen had such a profound and life-changing effect on Old Man Logan that even after she and their children together were tragically murdered by the Hulk gang, Old Man Logan never once forgot about her. He even later asks a returned loved, Mariko, to look out for Maureen, who herself, after more than a lifetime of tragedy and literally going to hell and back, is finally trying to live a normal and peaceful life. Mariko, that is, not Maureen, who is dead in Old Man Logan's timeline. Old Man Logan set aside some money so that Mariko could keep an eye on younger Maureen and ideally try to protect her moving forward, as he knew that if her life continued the way it had in his timeline, it would end in tragedy. He was like, I just love her so much, I just want her to be okay. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want even more Wolverine love interests, I'm pretty sure I could do 10 more. There's a lot of them out there. Be sure to let us know that you love this list by giving it a thumbs up. Can't give it a thumbs down because that doesn't exist anymore, so just thumbs up, please. What a world we live in where we can't dislike things. Number 8, Rose O'Hara. Rose was Wolverine's first love, and for most of his life was seemingly unrequited. In the Marvel Noir universe, she is also one of his main love interests. Rose is probably the reason why Wolverine tends to have a thing for redheads, actually, although that might be a foggier part of his memory and he might not always remember that. Honestly, at this point, I'm surprised that Logan can even remember what day it is or what his phone number is without having it written down somewhere. That's just how much he's had his brain and his memory scrambled. Rose was brought in from town to be a companion to young James Howlett, aka Kid Wolverine, when he was growing up on his parents' estate. Also, just to be clear, he wasn't known as Kid Wolverine, but we know him as Wolverine now, so he was a kid. You know what I'm saying. Rose was also tasked with looking after James, as he was known for being a weak and often sickly child. Rose died tragically when she ended up trying to get involved in a fight between Logan and his childhood rival, who had returned years later, Dog. It was implied then, as she lay dying, that she perhaps also did have feelings for James at some point. Wow, what a time to find that out. Unlike many of Wolverine's other love interests, Rose has not yet returned from the dead. At least, not yet, anyways. Maybe later, who knows. A lot of them do, a lot of them come back to life. Number 7, Yukio. Yukio has been both a lover and a friend to Wolverine, as well as acted as the adopted mother of his adopted daughter, Emiko. Yukio first met Wolverine during her time working as an assassin for Clan Yoshida. Initially, she was Wolverine's enemy, as she actually worked for the head of the clan, Lord Shinjin, who wanted to shame and kill Logan. Yukio would develop an attraction to Wolverine, but at the time he was basically hung up on Mariko Yoshida, the daughter of Lord Shinjin, so nothing came of it. However, it was because of her feelings for Wolverine that Yukio would ultimately decide to help save Mariko's life later on, despite the fact that Mariko was kinda like her romantic rival for Logan's affections. Yukio is also known for being close friends with Storm, and a possibly implied romantic interest of Aurora's as well. At least that's how I see it. I feel like maybe not everybody sees those implications. But I don't know, I think I would ship Storm and Yukio, just like I would also ship Wolverine and Yukio. And just like I would also ship Storm and Wolverine. It's a nice little triangle. Little love triangle there. Number 6. Silver Fox. Silver Fox has become a complicated character since her original story as Wolverine's lover. Silver Fox is a member of the Blackfoot tribe and is Canadian. When Wolverine met her, she had recently been widowed and as such began a relationship with Logan, who had recently been accepted into living with her tribe. Silver Fox, however, would tragically die at the hands of Sabretooth, Wolverine's arch nemesis, and a vicious man and a vicious mutant. Later on, however, this act would also end up being tied to Romulus, who apparently influenced Sabretooth and did a lot of brainwash shenanigans regarding the memories of her death and who was believed to have been behind it. Wolverine would end up attacking the people of Mount Logan and blaming them for her death because Romulus had him brainwashed to believe that that's what happened, despite Sabretooth having taken credit for killing Silver Fox, and doing so in front of Logan. Silver Fox would also later seemingly return, but it's more likely that this version of her associated with Weapon X, Team X, and Hydra was actually some kind of clone or was an agent who was simply brainwashed and manipulated into thinking that she was the true Silver Fox. Yeah, Silver Fox became really complicated, but she used to be very simple. Number 10. Rogue. Rogue wasn't so much a major love interest for Deadpool, but she definitely had a fun, brief fling during time apart from her usual main squeeze, Gambit. Rogue and Wade shared a juicy kiss, and because of her powers, she briefly made Wade handsome once more and took away his powers for a short time following said kiss. This actually also made Rogue's skin look like Wade's when he has his power set. It was a brief moment in Uncanny Avengers issue 22, but their short flirtation was pretty cute, I gotta say. Initially, Wade thought he would never be good enough for Rogue and implied that she only probably liked him because she didn't know him very well. And she responded by kissing him again, this time probing his mind a little bit, but confirming that his thoughts didn't really disturb her and that she still liked him. I also just love that cute moment. He's like, I don't know, I'm pretty wild. And then she kisses him and she's like, yeah, but I'm a little shocked, but mostly I'm fine. I'm Rogue. I've seen some stuff. Number 9. Outlaw. Outlaw is Inez Temple, a mutant mercenary and sometimes bodyguard. She has interacted with Deadpool a few times in the comics. After her apartment was destroyed in a fight between the Punisher and Deadpool when Wade had come calling for her help, he felt pretty bad about it and worked hard to buy her a new one as an apology. Outlaw realized that Deadpool really cared for her and the two ended up sleeping together. They would later also be briefly married, but it wouldn't end up working out. Outlaw's super strength ended up being a bit too much for Deadpool during those moments of passion, and so their marriage was annulled shortly thereafter. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want another Deadpool love interest list, he's been with a lot of people, so I'm pretty sure I could do that. Be sure to let us know you want more Deadpool love interest by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Captain America. While their love might not be romantic in nature most of the time, Captain America is definitely a character the Wade loves to bits. I say most of the time, but definitely all of the time. I don't think they've ever been in a romantic relationship, but Deadpool definitely still loves Captain America. In fact, Deadpool loved Cap so much that even when he had been replaced with a Hydra sleeper agent, Deadpool still followed him pretty much without question, which didn't work out so great for Deadpool, sadly. The real Captain America had been replaced by a Hydra sleeper agent, who was created by a sentient version of the Cosmic Cube named Kobuk, who altered reality by changing Cap's allegiance, believing it was the right thing to do at that time. As such, Steve Rogers would go on to conquer America and become Hydra Supreme, or that version of Steve Rogers anyways. It was only when it was too late that Deadpool realized the error of his ways. His love of Captain America had blinded him and really led him astray that time, and left him so hurt afterwards that he ended up drowning himself in mind wipe drugs, completely wiping his mind of many of his own past adventures. Sometimes love hurts. Number 7. Carmelita Camacho. Carmelita Camacho and Deadpool only had a very brief romance that was really kind of like a one-night stand. Carmelita and Deadpool both ended up captured together by the White Man, who the heroes for hire, who were accompanied by Deadpool at the time, had been hired to stop. Believing that these could be her last moments, Carmelita decided to go out with love and made love to Deadpool. However, later when Deadpool took off his mask once White Man was defeated, Carmelita ran from him in terror because, you know, this thing. It turns out, however, this brief time of passion resulted in Carmelita becoming pregnant. She gave birth to Deadpool's daughter, Eleanor Camacho. Later on, Carmelita would end up dead after being kidnapped by the villain the Butler as payback. Eleanor, however, lives on, and Deadpool does his best to be a good dad to her when he can, often fighting to keep her safe from his own enemies. But also, Eleanor might be someone super powerful in the future, so hopefully we get to see more of Eleanor. She's super cool. Number 6. Siren. Siren and Deadpool were actually for a time both romantically interested somewhat in the other. They had a brief romance, but would also at times come back together in the comics. Siren is Teresa Cassidy, the daughter of Sean Cassidy, aka Banshee. When Siren found herself depowered, Deadpool was the one who attempted to return her power to her. However, his methods were somewhat questionable. He kidnapped Wolverine and used his healing factor to help restore Siren's sonic vocal powers. It worked, but Wolverine wasn't very happy by the end of that process. And while Siren was grateful to Deadpool for his help, she also didn't agree with his method. She was like, maybe don't, capture Wolverine to do that next time. The two have remained friends in the comics and have been known to be friends with benefits at times. Number 5. Jerry Hunt. Jerry Hunt was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. who stumbled upon Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman when she was using her powers as a thief, just trying to survive and get by. Or well, she tried to be a thief briefly and then she was like, actually I shouldn't do this. I'll just be a hero instead, even though that doesn't pay anything. Oh boy, how am I gonna eat food? Coming across her path, Jerry managed to unmask Spider-Woman and found her appearance to be familiar. After he was injured, Jessica saved his life, and as he lay recovering at the end of that very first issue of Spider-Woman from the 1970s, he claimed that for whatever reason, he wanted that woman. He wasn't sure if he wanted to catch her or he wanted to love her, but boy oh boy did he want her. Jerry would later recall where he'd seen Jessica before in S.H.I.E.L.D. files where he saw her back in her Hydra days. Eventually, Jerry would end up finding Spider-Woman again, and for a time the two would even date. Jerry would also become an ally to Spider-Woman, helping her fight against villains and even trying to help her learn more about her own mysterious past. In the end, they would decide to break up when Jerry had to go back to London for work. Jess, you see, would rather stay put, and so that was the end of their romance. Number 4. Norman Osborn. For the daughter of Spider-Man, Spider-Woman May Mayday Parker, she'd actually end up falling in love with the descendant of a rival family, the Osborns. It's like a Romeo and Juliet love story. I mean, maybe the Osborns also isn't a rival family, but they're at least a complicated family in regards to their relation to the Parkers, truth be told. There were both good and awful memories there. Normie Osborn, Norman Osborn's grandson and Harry Osborn's son, became May's friend and ally after she saw the tragedy in him when he was Green Goblin and actually helped to reform him. He would end up married to another reformed villain and ally, Brenda Drago, the daughter of the second Vulture. However, before that came to pass, May revealed that she had feelings for Normie. Although he rejected her, citing their 4-year age difference and the fact that her father would freak as reasons, it was later revealed that Normie actually did have feelings for May, when we saw into his comatose visions, where Normie was haunted by his grandfather, Norman Osborn, who hounded him for falling in love with the girl. Also, Normie did really like May, but they couldn't be together. It wasn't meant to be. Number 3. Hawkeye. Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman and Clint Barton's Hawkeye ended up getting together as a result of their time on the Avengers. They both developed feelings for one another and decided to start dating. However, due to some misinterpretation of the boundaries of that relationship, the two ended up calling it quits. Clint thought that he and Jess were keeping things casual, and he ended up having a one-night stand with somebody else outside of the relationship, which Jessica was not happy about when she found out, because she thought things were more serious between them and more monogamous. It also ended on a not so great note, as Jess, upset and hurt, lashed out by physically hitting Clint. Also, let's remember that Jess does have super strength, though I'm sure she wasn't using it there, but still, that makes this moment even more worse in my mind. Both Clint and Jess made mistakes when it came to the whole situation between them, but fortunately, they were eventually able to move on and become friends again, though awkward moments still arise between the two as a result of this relationship. Number 2. Spider-Man. Obviously, we are once again switching up Spider-Woman's for a moment, moment. Although Gwen Stacy of Earth 65 is now known as Ghost Spider, there was a time when she too went by Spider-Woman. She has been known as Spider-Gwen most prominently from a reader standpoint, but within the narrative, Spider-Woman and Ghost Spider are more common names for that character. This alternate version of 616's Gwen Stacy ends up falling in love with a different Spider-Man other than Peter Parker. She is more known for her relationship with and love of Earth 1610's Miles Morales, aka Spider-Man. In fact, there is even an alternate future where these two end up together, settle down, and they have kids. In that reality, they are both heroes and also kind of celebrities because of their heroics. Number 1. Porcupine. Roger Gawking is a fan favorite when it comes to Jessica Drew's romances. He was once the villain Porcupine who ended up becoming involved in a case that Jessica was investigating as a PI. The spouses, paramours, and villains had been kidnapped and were being kept safe in exchange for ransom money that the villains were forced to pay. When Jessica went to investigate, she found a community of villains' loved ones who were essentially pretending they had been kidnapped in exchange for money, as many of them were victims of abuse at the hands of said villains. In the end, Jessica helped to resolve this conflict while still protecting the community of victims. Roger would go on to become an ally and friend to Jess, and also act as her babysitter after her son Jerry was born. Eventually, it would be revealed that Roger had feelings for Jess, and after believing he'd been killed only to find out he'd actually survived, the two shared a kiss, with Jess confirming that she also had feelings for Roger. More recently in the comics, Jess's busy heroic life, as well as her inability to see Roger as her equal, caused the two of them to break things off. Or more specifically, Roger to dump Jessica. I gotta say though, I kinda get it. I feel like Jessica did not have a lot of time for Roger. Poor Roger. Hopefully they can get back together, maybe? Again? Maybe? Not caught up with my Spider-Woman right now, so if they're back together, please don't tell me. I don't want any spoilers. Number 10. Hawkeye. Well, some may ship these two, and they have had some flirty moments in the Matt Fraction and David Aja Hawkeye series. They have never really been a thing. Still, that doesn't prevent others from dreaming, and you cannot deny that these two characters definitely have chemistry. Of course, their chemistry likely comes from the fact they are just such great friends. In fact, Clint considers Kate to be his best friend. Sorry, Natasha. At one point, Hawkeye and Hawkeye seemingly share a kiss in the 2016 Hawkeye series in issue number 14. At least, that's what the cover teased. In reality, this kiss wasn't between Clint and Kate at all, but rather Clint and Madame Mask, who was in a Kate Bishop clone body at the time. Oh, comics. Despite even the flirty moments that the two shared in the 2012 Hawkeye series, in the letters column it was more implied that there was no intention for there to be anything romantic between these two, and that Kate was not pining for Clint or anything like that, but simply saw him as her mentor, her friend, and someone who she therefore cared very deeply for. Which meant that yes, he could say mean things to her that would hurt and affect her. There's a whole point where he's basically like, look, I don't want to sleep with you, and people were like, oh my goodness, was Kate like hurt by that? Because does she want to sleep with Clint? I don't know, I feel about that. And they were like, I don't think so. Stephen Wacker, who was the assistant editor, I believe, on that book at the time, was like, yeah, that's not what I saw. I saw more of just her being like, ouch, like that's kind of mean to say. That hurts. Even though I don't want to sleep with you. I think it would be weird. I don't ship it. But if you ship it, that's okay. Number 9. Jack. Jack was Kate's one-night stand who appears in the 2016 all-new Hawkeye series in issue number 3. The night before, at the end of issue number 2, Kate and her friend and fellow superhero America Chavez decided to go out dancing as part of an attempt to cheer up Kate and help her forget about Clint after the pair of Hawkeyes had a falling out. Jack is the very nice man that she meets on her night out dancing with America. The two apparently hit it off and end up going back to Kate's apartment. The next morning, Jack is revealed to be a super sweetheart who wants to spend the day with his new paramour and also wakes Kate up with a coffee that he went out to get for her after waking up early and being unable to fall back asleep. What a cutie! Unfortunately for Jack, Kate isn't really in a place to be in a relationship right now, so she turns down Jack's offer. Honestly, I think Kate missed out here. Jack also happens to be wearing a lot of purple, which I think is a design signal that they too could have been just perfect for one another. Oh well. Kate had stuff she needed to work out, and at least she was upfront about that. Although America does later comment that Kate's aversion to attachments is making her sound a lot like the wrong Hawkeye, if you catch her drift. I gotta say, I agree. Being like, I can't have attachments, I'm a hero. It's a very Clint Barton thing to say, I feel like. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Kate Bishop lists, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Although I don't know if we could do 10 more love interests, because honestly, finding these 10 was pretty tricky, to be honest. Number 8. Miles Morales. In the reality of 1610, Kate Bishop is quite different from her 616 counterpart. Instead of becoming Hawkeye Hawkeye, she is just plain old Katie Bishop. Here she ends up becoming the girlfriend of superhero Spider-Man, aka Miles Morales. In fact, Miles likes her and trusts her so much that he decides to reveal the truth of his secret identity to her. However, this doesn't work out great for him as Katie's parents are actually Hydra agents. Uh-oh. Katie ends up telling them what was revealed to her, and when Miles is invited over, they drug and kidnap him, taking him to a place where he is tormented and experimented on. Eventually, Miles escapes their clutches and is saved by the young Ultimates. Despite Katie feeling bad about what happened, their relationship does not survive her ultimate betrayal. Still, for a while, Miles was a love interest of the ultimate version of Catherine Bishop. Number 7. America Chavez. Just as Clint isn't really a romantic partner of Kate's, the same could be suggested when it comes to a relationship with America, fellow hero and friend. In fact, while Clint thinks of Kate as his best friend, I'd say that Kate has a few best friends personally, including Clint, Cassie Lang aka Stature, and America Chavez. America tends to be one of the first people that Kate calls when she needs advice or help, whether it be personal or professional, and it goes the same way for America. She usually calls Kate. The two ended up getting to know one another when America got tangled up in the Young Avengers adventures. Since the time they started working together, they have become close friends who both hold a lot of respect for one another. Although Kate is very much straight and America is very much gay, these two still have great chemistry, and if Kate ever did end up wanting to explore her sexuality, I could see America being a great partner for her personally. Still, these two have never been together romantically in the comics, and like Kate and Clint, this is pretty much purely fanship. Possibly my fanship. I really like America and Kate together. Perhaps this is even more fanship too than Hawkeye and Hawkeye, as the two don't really have flirty moments together in the comics, just a strong friendship and bond, and a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun together. But hey, Kate hasn't been around that long, so I needed some more love interest to flush out this list. And I love these two together, so yeah, this is my fanship. Hopefully that's cool with you. Let me know if you also would ship America and Kate if they decided to be a thing. Number 6. Clown. The Clown is Kazimierz Kazimierczak, but people just call him Kazi for short. He was an assassin hired to eliminate Clint Barton's Hawkeye for the Tracksuit Dracula gang, and other interested parties. A lot of interested parties. A lot of people wanted Clint dead. While this might seem like a strange person for Kate Bishop's Hawkeye to get romantic with, she didn't really know who he was at the time. Both Kazi and Kate were at the same party and ended up talking, enjoying one another's company, and then this led to a little bit of flirting at the end. Though Kate never knew that Kazi was actually an assassin who was employed to take out her partner and friend Clint. The two ended up merely sharing a kiss after talking with one another all night until the party they were both at ended. I will say I also noticed in the Hawkeye series when the Clown's MCU counterpart and Kate's MCU counterpart seemed to share a lingering look as Kazi ran away from Kate. I was the only one, I feel like, that was watching that was like, oh, is it gonna be a thing? Is there gonna be a thing? There was no romance, but they did have a look. They did have a look.
Halfway through at number 5, Betty Brant. Now, Betty got married in Amazing Spider-Man number 156 and then headed off to Paris for a honeymoon that doubled as a work assignment for her new husband, reporter Ned Leeds. However, in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 183, we see Peter propose to Mary Jane and her turn him down, which puts him in a pretty dark place. Wonder why? Which means that when Betty shows up in Peter's apartment in Amazing Spider-Man number 184, there are going to be some issues. However, Betty claims that she has left Ned on their honeymoon while also on assignment together. But here's the biggest kicker. She never told Ned that she was leaving him. Yeah. And then she still intends on sparking a romantic relationship with Peter. He ends up shutting her down in number 186, telling her that he can't be with her, but she doesn't take no for an answer, and in issue 187, she makes her own move and just goes for the kiss, saying, "Shut up darling, just kiss me." The next panel then cuts to a few hours later, which sparks the debate whether he and Betty ended up bumping more than just their lips, and then Ned ends up threatening to kill Peter if he doesn't stay out of Betty's life. But hey, it's still a thing, and I mean it's a messed up thing, but it still happened. Yikes. Speaking of messed up, in it for Sarah Stacy. Look, after learning that your father isn't actually your father, but rather your mother's ex, who she cheated on with his worst enemy, what do you think that you would do? Also, you're aging more rapidly because your real father has some form of goblin serum in his system that somehow passed on to you, but you only age up physically, meaning that you're mentally 10 with the body of an adult. Yeah, you might want to skip this number, since Pete and Sarah get closer after fighting off dealers in Paris, because she also has superpowers, because of course she does. This is made even worse, because they're in Paris without MJ, who Peter didn't bring for whatever reason. But the thing is, Peter thinks that it's entirely platonic. Yeah, this just goes to show that if your partner thinks someone is trying to get with you, you should probably listen, because lo and behold, Sarah ends up planting one on her almost dad, just as MJ shows up for a surprise visit. Yeah, I think the name of this storyline, which is since remembered, is way too fitting and definitely going to be seared into my brain now. God damn it. Getting close to the end in number 3, Cindy Moon. 13 years after her imprisonment, Cindy's story came to light when the orb revealed the Watcher's secrets to the world. Spider-Man, now aware of her existence, sought to free her. Cindy warned him about the danger of Morlun, but he opened the door anyway. Feeling doomed by this decision, she ended up attacking him, but learned that Morlun was already dead. Grateful for her freedom, Cindy donned an improvised costume made of webs and adopted the name of Silk. She sought to reconnect with her parents, and Spider-Man promised to help her search for him. As they spent time together, a deep bond formed between Spider-Man and Silk, and they began an intimate relationship. And I mean, that kind of makes sense given that, you know, you're both spider powered, so yeah. And this surprised Anna, Peter's roommate, who felt threatened by Cindy's presence, although I don't really understand that because he's just your roommate. After an initial confrontation, Cindy apologized and tried to mend their relationship, but it didn't work, obviously, as you all know. But hey, that's like number 2 in like my personal, like, dude should have been with them instead of MJ, that Cindy's number 2. But ultimately in number 2, Kitty Pryde. In Operation Zero Tolerance's Shadowcat subfile 604842, it was revealed that Catherine Pryde was abducted as a baby by a Neo and replaced with another baby who grew up as Kitty Pryde, also known as Shadowcat of the X-Men. Despite encountering many similar holograms, the X-Men dismissed them as attempts to disturb them, but Charles Xavier eventually located Kitty and sought to recruit her for his school as a new X-Men member. Blah blah blah, things go on, she ends up meeting Spider-Man, they start dating. Yes, this is actually a thing. Spider-Man dated Kitty Pryde, and that's pretty dope actually. I don't know why I like this so much. Like, I put it at number 2 because I just like the fact that they dated, but hey, that's not the only person that Kitty's dated either. She crossed paths with the Guardians of the Galaxy when they rescued a young Jean Grey, and then she ended up dating and getting engaged to Star-Lord. But hey, she dated Peter before that, so you know what? That's the OTP, as the kids used to say. And finally, in number 1, Felicia Hardy. Look, I have a whole spiel about who Felicia Hardy is, but we all know the Black Cat, and I'm going to say it. Peter should have been with Felicia. Okay, I get that she's like a pseudo criminal, but like, dude, look at the Spider-Man PS4 game. MJ is so incredibly toxic in that game, but then Felicia shows up and you're just like, why am I not here? Spider-Man Web of Shadows, you choose Felicia every damn time. Okay, I don't care if it means I'm evil, I don't care about the black suit, I just want Felicia. I cosplay Spider-Man so that I can find someone at a convention who is cosplaying Felicia Hardy, and then I can just start a life with them, okay? Like, come on. I don't need to say anything else. I don't need to talk about all of this because it's Felicia. He should have done it. He should have hit it, and you know what? When you're going through that DLC and you're like, oh crap, does Peter have a kid with Felicia? You know what? I was disappointed that he didn't. And you know what? I'm sure he was too. Thanks for watching.
Number 10, Deadpool. Say what? When did Black Widow and Deadpool ever have a thing? Well, okay, they didn't explicitly have a thing, but there was definitely a decent amount of flirting. And I'm not talking about Nat here, I am talking about Yelena Belova. Yelena has also gone by and goes by the alias Black Widow, and as such, I think it's only fair that we touch on some of her love life as such. I feel like Yelena does not get enough love, both in fandom and in comics, to be honest. In 2008's Deadpool issue 9, Deadpool ends up fighting Yelena, who is there as part of a team to take him into Norman Osborn. firstborn. During this fight, the two flirt fiercely, though nothing ever really comes of all that flirting. All in all, Yelena actually doesn't ever seem to have much of a love life in the comics. It seems like she is usually too busy being cloned, being evil, being a successful lingerie model and business owner, or actually helping Natasha out. But there definitely were some sparks between her and Deadpool. Number 9, Dr. Doom, or really Count Otto von Doom. This romance comes to us from Neil Gaiman's alternate Marvel universe of 1602, which if you haven't checked it out, you need to, because it's great. Great writing, great art, just great. Here Natasha is a spy working for Sir Nicholas Fury and for the Queen, but she betrays the Queen and Sir Nicholas and her partner Matthew Murdock because she is in love with Count Otto von Doom. Unfortunately, when Natasha later questions Doom's plans to sail his flying ship to the edge of the world, she is repaid for her love and loyalty by being pushed out of the ship in response, causing her to plummet to her death. Yeesh. This is why probably Dr. Doom doesn't date a lot of people. Or does he date a lot of people? I don't think he does, really. Number 8, Tony Stark. Okay, I don't like bringing up this one as were these two ever really in love? Well, it's debatable. But in the Ultimate Universe, Tony and Natasha end up married, and Tony even makes her a set of Iron Man armor as a wedding gift. However, it turns out that Natasha is actually still a criminal and was just pretending to be a hero and to be interested in Tony in order to complete a mission. She kills Jarvis, confesses her plot, and then fortunately is taken down by Tony and the nanotech he had put in her, which would have helped her control her suit. I don't mind the relationship between the two before this is revealed. In fact, they're even kind of cute together, but this reveal, while perfectly in line with the darker, sort of more violent, alternate world that is the Ultimate Universe, just kind of makes everything her character is supposed to be about, in main continuity I guess, feel kind of pointless. All in all, Black Widow to me just isn't as interesting of a character when she is a villain. And I know that's weird because I always talk about how much I love villains, but with her, I actually prefer her as a neutral party or just a hero. I think that it's just more interesting for her. A spy who betrays you, as her alternate in the Ultimate Verse implies, should be expected. It's kind of boring. Number 7, Rogue. While these two really only shared one kiss in the comics, I like to think that there could be something more there. At least from Rogue's side of things. She really did seem to enjoy that kiss. Although for Black Widow, she was just passing on information. But passing on information with a real good kiss though. Like, she probably could have just touched Rogue, but she kissed her. Which makes me wonder if there might be more of an attraction between Rogue and Natasha than they'd like to admit. When we're talking about Black Widow's love interests, actually, it's kind of interesting. A lot of people think of her as being a spy and having, a lot of romantic partners, but Nat doesn't really open up too many, and as such, despite being around in the comics since the 60s, has really only had a few serious romantic relationships. And usually with Black Widow, it's serious, or it's work, or it's really not much of anything. Number 6, Hercules. So this romance was actually smaller and less significant than most have implied it was. But although it was random, this relationship definitely happened. It was never as fully fleshed out or expertly built up or written as some of Natasha's other relationships. Instead, it was simply acknowledged and referred to in a few issues that make up the Avengers story known as the Korvac Saga from 1978. It's never explained how or why these two get together, and after a few issues of bickering, they kind of just break up, but it is randomly again referred to in 2010's Hercules Fall of an Avenger. So for better or worse, these two definitely hooked up at least, and then rather than continue or explain this love affair, writers simply just had them merrily go on their way to other love interests. But they still like to come back to it every now and then for some reason.
Coming in at number 5, we have Bethany Cave. Another woman who met Tony during his heavy drinking phase, Bethany was assigned to Tony Stark's security team shortly after the death of her husband, and eventually found some comfort in the invincible Iron Man's arms. While Tony's drinking was a major issue in their relationship for a while, she would be an essential part in the process of helping him sober up. Unfortunately, their romance was not meant to last, as Bethany would eventually discover her husband was secretly alive, and after rescuing him from his circumstances, left Tony to be with the man she was meant to be with. Better luck next time, Stark. Coming in at number 4, we have Janet Van Dyne, aka The Wasp. Dating a coworker always comes with complications, and both Iron Man and the Wasp found out that lesson the hard way. After her marriage to Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, fell apart, Janet found herself rebounding with Tony Stark. while being unaware that he was actually Iron Man, aka the co-founder of the Avengers team along with her and Hank. Even Captain America tried to warn Tony that their relationship was doomed for disaster, but it took Janet finding out for herself that Iron Man and Tony Stark are one and the same to put an end to their romance, even if they'd share a few more flirty moments in the future once she was properly divorced from Hank Pym. Coming in at number 3, we have Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow. If I had a nickel for every time Tony Stark was romanced by an undercover agent within his own company, we'd probably have more nickels than you'd expect. Initially falling for Natasha while she was still a spy for the Russian government, their romance initially ended once Tony found out about the whole secret agent for an enemy power thing. However, the two were surprised to find their destinies intertwined when they both were early members of the Avengers team, now fighting for the same side. And while they initially seemed ready to try their romance again, the two have since decided to remain friends and allies, and determined the fate of the planet is probably more important than their office flirting. Coming in at number 2, we have Jennifer Walters, aka the Incredible She-Hulk. Most of the relationships I've listed in this video have either ended tragically or at the very least caused a lot of drama in Tony's life. That said, it's a nice change of pace that Tony was able to enjoy a more fun and casual relationship with someone who viewed things the same way that he did, which is exactly why Iron Man and She-Hulk made such a great pair. Never afraid to call Tony out for the double standard of how their casual love lives were talked about, Jennifer and Tony had great chemistry, and when it comes to the comic books, might be my favorite pairing for Iron Man. But if you really pushed me on my favorite Iron Man romance overall, well, coming in at our top spot, we have Pepper Potts from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Pepper is a great character in the Marvel comics as well, but my favorite interpretation of this duo's relationship has to be between Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark and Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts. Capable of running Stark Industries while Tony is saving the world and battling his own inner demons, Pepper is the counterbalance Tony needs to stop himself from going overboard. And watching their arc of their relationship over the course of the entire MCU is one of the best running plot threads throughout the entire Infinity Saga. And who knows, there might not even be an MCU if the dynamic between Tony and Pepper wasn't so intriguing in the very first movie. And for that reason, I've got to say that she's the very best.
Number 5, Tiger. One of my favorite of Wolverine's romantic interests has to be Tiger, who is long known as one of the main crime lords of Madripoor. Before that, she was Jessin Hoan, who ended up being kidnapped by the Reavers and later saved by the X-Men. When Jessin learned that Madripoor crime lord Roche was behind the Reavers' attack, which had pretty much completely uprooted and dramatically altered her life moving forward, she dedicated her life to usurping and defeating him, taking up the mantle Tiger, or taking up the name Tiger really, that's how we know her now. Wolverine would later learn of Tiger's true identity as Jessin Hoan and would pledge himself to her cause, eventually working as her personal bodyguard while in his patch persona. During this time, Wolverine would also become a somewhat casual lover to Tiger as the two continued to grow closer together. And I love them together, I just think they're so cute. Number 4, Itsu. Itsu was Wolverine's wife at one point many years ago when he was training with the Master Bando Saburo. The two fell in love, were married, and Itsu even became pregnant with Logan's child. For a brief time they were happy, until Logan accidentally stabbed a fellow member of the community with his claws. As a result, he was forced to leave, exiled, but when he went to say goodbye to Itsu, he only found her dead. Years later it would be revealed that Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier was actually the one responsible for her death, seemingly manipulated into killing her under Romulus's orders. Oh, Romulus, pulling all these strings and then just disappearing. Their unborn child was also stolen from Itsu's womb, and due to the child's mutant gene, which would also grant him a healing factor, survived. This child would grow up to be Akahiro, aka Daken, Wolverine's troublesome son, who was manipulated into thinking his father had killed his mother before abandoning him. And I'll just let you guess who made him believe that. If you can't guess, it was Romulus. Romulus did everything. And also nothing. Number 3, Jean Grey. Despite these two often not ending up together throughout stories told of them across various mediums, the fact remains that Wolverine will likely always carry a torch somewhere for Jeannie. Jean Grey and Wolverine are generally both never in the right place to end up together, and oftentimes their love story, if they do end up having one in whichever canon or narrative that we're talking about here, ends up being tainted with tragedy. The fact remains, however, that both Logan and Jean often count on one another to do what's right, and even turn to one another when they need someone to lean on in a time of need. Even when Jean is dead, Wolverine still has been known to fight for her honor, and when she has been alive, Wolverine has also been the one to kill her more than once. Needless to say, their relationship is way more than complicated. Number 2. Mariko Yoshida. At this point, Mariko has had a long and somewhat convoluted story, but initially in the comics she was simply the daughter of Japanese crime lord Shinjin Harada, who ruled over Clan Yoshida. Mariko would end up meeting Wolverine when the X-Men asked her brother, the mutant Sunfire, for help. While initially kinda scared of Wolverine, eventually the two would fall for one another, both admiring the differences of the other and also sharing a sense of kindness. Mariko would end up forcibly married off by her father and in a relationship where she was pretty badly mistreated. However, she felt compelled to stay in that marriage due to a sense of honor to her family. Eventually, however, Mariko would become free again and would even take over as the leader of Clan Yoshida in her father's place. For a time, her and Wolverine were engaged, with her not wanting to be married until she had removed all the criminal ties from her family. In the end, however, Mariko would die in a criminal gang war before she could end up marrying Logan. Mariko ended up poisoned, and Logan helped her death to be less painful at Mariko's behest by making it a lot more brief. Logan would punish her killer by visiting him every year and slicing off a piece of him until he died. This wouldn't be the end of Mariko's story though, as she would continue to pop up as the forced tormentor of Wolverine in hell, and later resurrected as Gorgon's Scarlet Samurai. Basically another lover that we just couldn't leave dead, because yeah. I also love when Wolverine comes to hell and is like, alright, I'll free you though, Mariko, and she's like, nah, I'm good. Just remember me as I was. I don't want to go back. Like what? They could have had a happy ending there. Oh well. Number 1. Storm. Storm has always been a close friend of Wolverine's and is sometimes known for being his romantic partner as well, especially more recently in the comics. Depending on the reality we're talking about, there have also been universes where these two are firmly cemented as a romantic couple. Even in modern comics, with all the history they have shared as teammates, close friends, and romantic interests, these two's chemistry still manages to surface, and even today they get pretty awesome flirty moments written in for them, like during the Ten of Swords Otherworld tournament when the two faced off in a drinking contest against one another. The best thing about that, too, was that they both held their own and proved they could match each other. That's the thing about Storm and Wolverine. Both are incredibly strong, both as superheroes and as individuals, which is just a small part of why they work so well together. They're very, like, evenly matched, which I like.